Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming on your morning. I am joining you from New York. It's sunny and it's cold. It's like 28 degrees, so forgive my hat. Even in my house, it's cold today. So, yeah, so we are in the land of the Lenape people, and I'm specifically on Staten Island. So, I'll be excited to share some about mobile filmmaking today and talk to you a little bit more. It would be good. We don't have a lot of time because normally I teach this in a whole semester, a few times a week, and it's intense. So I'm just giving you a little bit of an overview and some tips that can help you. And then I'm always reachable, so you can always reach out to me. But if we can, I would like to do a little pop-up. I do like to see people's faces. I know I can't always ask that, but for me teaching, it's often, if I can ask to be visible, I will not judge your room or if you're in bed. Thank you. Yeah, it's just for me when you're already in this environment. So it helps me knowing who I'm talking to. So if you don't mind, thank you so much for doing that. And if at any point you need to turn it off, that's great. So I'm just doing a really quick going around. So I have a bit of the idea of maybe your background and your interest in coming, if you can keep it short. So I'm gonna just start. And then also for me, you can either raise your hand, but you're fine to just speak and turn off your mic. I'm not so official, so you can see how you want to do that, okay? And here we go. I'm gonna ask Lucia. Do you say that? Yeah, Lucia. If you can just say quickly what brings you here this morning. Thank you.
Well, I always go to your workshops and in the festival.
Yeah.
So just wanna keep improving. And I have two films in the festival this year. So, um, you know, just
Yeah.
thank you for.
Great. Yeah, thank you. It's my first year not coming. I had the film opening night and I was like, ah, can't
Yeah,
come.
well, I'm not in Miami also, so I don't have access to the live
I
performances.
know. It's so great that it's live. Yeah. So that's fabulous. Congratulations. And we never stop learning with this, as we all know, who's been making. So thank you, Lucia. And I was going to ask Julia just quickly, like, what brings you here? So I know also a bit, maybe if you have a lot of experience or not. Yeah.
Sure. Hi, Gabri. Hi, everyone. I am here because I'm interested in learning more about specifically using mobile phones. I make a lot of films and do a lot of photography and use a lot of gear. Um, so I'm hoping to broaden my toolbox.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Toolbox is a good. I'll use that always too. Toolbox. Great. Priscilla. Ay, ay.
Hola, hi. So
Hi,
nice
Krista.
and so many beautiful faces I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm in New York too, so I'm also in the cold weather. Um, I think I've been really experimenting with film, and I wrote a short film and like traditional way of like writing a script, and so I'm in a space where I just want to have like more knowledge and awareness of like language, so that when I'm collaborating with filmmakers, that I can be like, oh, wide shot, or just like things that I could keep like as I'm creating, I could feel a little more fluid with.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Yes, I will talk. I'll address that in a second. Okay, gracias. Sandra, good morning.
Buenos días, everyone. I'm Sandra Portal Andreu. Hi, Priscilla. I'm in Miami, from Miami. all day, every day. I have a film in the festival that's showing today at 2. Thank you. Yeah, I've been involved in different sort of aspects of film, whether it be from dance to actual acting, theater, film work. But and I've done a few projects here and there, but I'm really interested in finding just new ways to refine, maybe new ways to approach working with the camera, working with the body, moving with the body, things like that. Yeah. And I've heard so much about you, Gabri, through the years, and I've never had an opportunity, unfortunately, to take one of your workshops. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. So great. You know, your name sounds familiar for me too when I saw you on the program. And so thank you for coming. Um,
Thank you for this.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing that. Karen, hi.
Hi there. I was
Hi.
going to try to stay away from not everyone seeing my face, but here I am.
I know.
With a few wrinkles and bags, but
You look
I've
great.
actually,
You look great.
thank you. Actually, I've taken your workshop in the past.
Yes, I know your face.
Right.
I know.
And I've been, experimenting with my iPhone and my iPad and iMovie, and I'm just here to learn a little bit more.
Okay, great. Yeah. And later, if you want to turn off your camera, that's fine. And then pop in and out or chat or just talk your voice. I just want to to start, know who's here.
No
And
problem.
a bit background. Thank you, Karen. Maureen. Hi.
Hello, good morning. I'm in Peru, and I learned about this festival. I'm joining because I'm a dance teacher, and we're working on videos, and I have the kids working with their phones. We didn't know anything about it. We were just having our dance classes, our regular dance classes when all this happened. So I'm getting acquainted to filming.
Bienvenido.
Gracias, Gabri. Muchas gracias.
Yeah. Cora. Hi.
Hi. Glad to be here. Yeah, I'm like en route home from Florida and back to Ohio, so I'll be in the cold soon. I'm a choreographer and director, so in terms of the film work, I've often collaborated with and not done as much as the camera work or the editing. I have done some camera work when I was in Italy about 1.5 years or so ago. But I'm really daunted by the editing process in a way, not by making the decisions, but by actually doing it. And so I'm here also to emancipate myself a little bit in terms of downsizing and just feeling more playful, like with the iPhone and getting less maybe serious in that and allowing myself to be more exploratory.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And hope you got my email. Jose, buenas. Okay, I'm not hearing you, but you can introduce me or put it in the chat if you want. I'm not sure if you're talking, Jose, but I can't hear you. I was going to ask you to introduce yourself. So I'm going to go to Emily, okay? All right.
Good morning. Buenas.
Buenas.
So happy to be here. I'm Emily. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. Formerly lived in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And I love Screendance, so I'm so happy that I could participate in these workshops and see some of these gorgeous films. I'm an actress and an aspiring filmmaker too. And just echoing what others have said, I'm here to learn and to try and just break down this barrier that I have in my mind as to what I could do, because I really see that so many people are doing such amazing things And it really comes from ideas and just the love and the joy and ideas that you have. So yeah, I want to learn and just
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here. I still take workshops and do, we never learn and stop learning. So, one of the things, today I was going to really talk about mobile filmmaking, some camera work, some things to learn you play. And it might be helpful for this group to talk about my journey if I haven't really told you about it. But I started making films now 20 years ago, which seems crazy. And I had a lot of beginner's luck. So I thought, I'm a choreographer. I have worked in production and film before. How hard can it be? And then my first film was really successful, mostly because I worked with a very good cinematographer. And also because I also got lucky. And then my other two films, I can't really look at them because I see all the mistakes. And then slowly I started learning, taking courses at the independent film school. And I had a mentor, which was actually my best part, is that I had a sort of more Hollywood filmmaker, Charles Stone, who did like an older film, and he does other things still, but he did Drumline. And so he really talked about how to communicate about your film. And I took camera courses, directing the camera. So when you were talking about, I don't know who was talking about, I need terms, I did that whole part. And honestly, I never really understood anything until I had my breakthrough aha moment working with a cinematographer. And this is after I had films in festivals. I produced a couple of $1 million movie. And then I worked with this one cinematographer, Louis Retel Helmrich. Is also like myself from the Dutch colonial background. And the way he was using his stabilizer and his body in making films really resonated. And all of a sudden, I could use what he gave me, I could translate it into my body self. And that totally changed how I approached filmmaking. And then I've been teaching at Screendance, and I developed this course, and I'm a professor at Barnard College at Columbia University. And I really started using his approach, using single shot and using my body, even though I have the terminology. And they are handy when you work with a commercial crew. And then but if you want to work with a commercial crew, in my science, I send it out. I can be happy to send you a list, Priscilla. And I'll be happy to share resources. So we are a pretty diverse group here. But I have a few things today that afterwards I can share, such as a more geeky mobile filmmaking list, what kind of gear is good, what kind of editing is good. But today I was going to really just focus on understanding the camera better, and then figuring out what you have around you to use and not thinking about all the gear. And this year was interesting. It's an understatement, 2020. But I started taking a lot of my advice and brought it myself. My films were getting bigger and bigger. So I didn't do a film in 2 years because I was gearing up for this big feature film. And then, of course, COVID happened, and I got back to the basis. So the film that's in the festival, I shot by myself, no crew, no nothing. I literally used my nose and my tongue to turn on my camera, literally. Had to take off my mask and take the distance for those. So, and I think that might be good is to really use the dancer self. We all have a dancer's background, I think here. Just use your dancer self to do it. And then the other part, I'm not teaching an editing workshop, but I can give you hints to what you can use on your mobile. I'm really focusing on, this is your phone, you have your mobile, what editing software is there. And I will share that to Miami Light Project. I'll give a list of things, but I don't want to take too much of the time today doing that, but really sharing some things that can be done with your camera, with the mobile phone, and then you can give me questions. I have also a series on like editing and all of that. But I'm gonna say something for all the dancers and Cora. Filmmaking is much more collaborative normally than choreographers, and the only people in the world that really think they need to know how to edit and direct and shoot and do the lighting are dancers. I don't know why that happens. So I urge you to let that go. I did the same. You're not going to be good in everything. And that's okay, because that's when you look at the film, you see all the different people that do it. So part of it is getting a really good collaborator, finding who you work with. I don't edit my films ever. I can teach it though. Because I suck at it, I have no patience. And I like lighting. My thing has been writing the choreography for the camera and composing the camera. And then using my body to film. So a lot of what I'm going to share is about that, because we only have this time. So if that's okay, so we'll just focus on that, and then if you want to go deeper into other things or lighting, I can share it, but we might not have time. So I just did a simple PowerPoint for things we know. And did everybody bring their camera, their phone? Because we're also going to just look at things a little bit differently today. And for people who want to know terms, so make sure you have it. Jose, you okay? I don't know if you can hear me. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to have the camera too, so that we can also work with a few little things that you probably know. But again, I just also I take some courses. I just did one on commercial filmmaking, and it was super helpful just to know how the world thinks, right? So I never used to do PowerPoints, but I find it helpful during these times. So, oh, there we go. So for today, I'm going to just go through this a little bit and just talk about the camera and share later on in some more things with you, gear tips, certain stabilizers that I think work well for your phone if you want to get gear. But I really am trying to think about not using too much gear and doing everything on your mobile. So if I would go into lighting and editing, I keep it on the phone if you want to do that with students, for example. So my motto is smaller gear, less fear. A little bit. So your camera in your phone is still a camera, smaller. And so basically what the smaller camera does is that it allows you to move around more, and so take away the fear. Now, a lot of what we see is on TikTok, on other places, is just straight up the, frontal camera shooting, and then pretty much a registration of the dance. And that can be interesting. And then there's some people who do great moves with just the camera, but just having your phone here, the phone here, and they move in relationship to the camera. But I like for myself, actually, the smaller gear, less fear that's what happened to me. That I actually started doing more with smaller cameras than when I was on set with a big camera and the camera guy and the crew, etc., etc. And then I would be behind the monitor. And we all know this, right? The focal length, so how you go from 2D to 3D, and then really figuring out how the body sees different. And just as a reminder, and I still like to do this for myself, is really that you're working with light, right? While light bounces off the object, passes through the object, and it also turns it upside down. And it's really interesting to look at that and keep on thinking that you work with light when you have your camera, and that you work from a 2D to a 3D space. And so one of the things I do, and I say, even if you're not going to be doing the camera, always visualize everything you do. And we're so lucky we have this thing with the camera in hand. So if you just even take your camera, and it's just a simple exercise for yourself, is just if you look at something to remind yourself, oh, I look at this here, this is my water bottle, but I see everything around it. So if I am in the one person that wants you to see the water bottle, I'm gonna need to just figure out how I want to see the water bottle. So even if you take an object in your room right now, just take something simple. I'm gonna ask you to do it even if you know it. I do this all the time, remind me. Last night I make a little video because the light through the street lanterns on my window and the blinds was so nice that I just filmed that. So sometimes you catch something and say, how does it work? Well, it didn't work, but then I changed, put a little light at it, and I play. So playing is super important. So just take your camera and look around in your space and just see where the light comes from. Because this is the one thing also to notice. Remember, the camera catches light. So if you have no light set up, and then what looks good with the light? So, and then maybe go closer, or even if you have a cup, if I would film it from on top or from close by, that would be different. So take a few minutes just rediscovering something in your room. Even if you do this all the time. And what I find, and I'm just keep talking while you do that, what I find is that the constantly training your eye is the most important you can do, and you can do that 24/7. And often we don't do it. We do it when we start shooting. So maybe for today your takeaway will be that you're going to always look at everything. Take out your phone and see how it looks like. And if you move towards it. How does it look when you move? How does it look when you are still? Right? If you turn it upside down, if you move. Because our eyes really don't see the same thing as the lens does. And to understand the lens, that's that constant training that you need to do for yourself. And just play around a little bit with it. And I'll come back. Something that maybe catches your eye in a different way. I have a little Buddha here and the light hits it nicely. So. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, too much light in it. It's a tiny little Buddha, but then make a little thing. So the one thing is like really can share with you, and I want to give you that idea of always looking at something, seeing it when you walk in a room and discover the room. Where is the light coming from? And you will find that you actually have a lot of interesting things in your space, in your own space already. And to me, this has been the best thing, and still is the best thing of understanding light and camera, is constantly looking at things when I see something, I think, oh, that's interesting. Okay, how will it look through a camera? Either take a picture or go through filming it, right? So that's just one of the things to start really discovering. Now, I go through this all the time. I did a Sundance Film Festival panel that we taped 2 days ago, talking about Screendance. And Katerina McPherson, do you know her? She wrote a great book on video dance. So she was the writer, and I was super honored to be in it. Her approach is on levels a little bit more standard, and she said, "Oh, it's so narrative what you do, but in the film world, my work is not narrative. But for dance people, it's narrative, right?" And so, the one thing that's super important, and that you know as a filmmaker, but is really to think about what you as a maker see. And so if I take an example today, right, to really understand what you're up against when you make a dance film, and who can just like say, let's say, can anybody just say structure, Karen? Anybody that you think, oh, this is what the structure of a film is?
You're asking me, Karen?
Yeah, Karen, like, can you just say what do you think a normal film? What's the structure, or
Well,
what?
there's a beginning, there's content, and there's an end.
Right, totally. And often what we see is the first image, what people recognize. And I always just like to give you just the reminder in myself is that everybody watches things right now, especially now, and then they have a very clear idea of what film should be. And when you start making, and then with Screendance, if you start to develop something, there's also the TikTok phenomena and everything. Is still the registration of dance, and a dance film should look like you're dancing, right? So it's important to figure out what the world looks like and then get your own point of view really clear. So, for example, if we just think about that in sort of terms of this, it's like, okay, let's say, and I'm gonna get the names wrong, but Karen, Priscilla, and I can't see them on here, the names, so it would be Maria, no. Let's see, I'm gonna have to stop my share a little bit. I'm gonna stop my share and I go back to it. So let's say Priscilla, Sandra, and Emily. They're making a film. This is always, so we're gonna go really talk about point of view and how you can get your point of view to your camera, right? Let's make Priscilla, Emily, and Lucia are gonna make, the four of them get one assignment. They're gonna go film a baseball game. That's your assignment. Lucia goes in, she sits, she takes the wide shot, sees a stadium, she establishes you're in a stadium, and she follows, you know, there's a baseball game, so it's like the establishing shot showing us where we are. Priscilla goes in, and her film is all about the body parts of the baseball players. You see the butts, the legs, the parts, that's her film. Sandra, he has a more abstract, and she looks at all the gadgets that are going to be in that baseball stadium, and takes the bat and the seats. And then Emily is sitting down, and she sits next to this couple, and they're fighting, and she is just sneaking in on them and has this whole close-up of their interaction and their relationship and their fight. And then all of them are done, and four of you have made a film about in a baseball, at a baseball game, right? And so it can be so different, and so it's really important for you to refine and define and go against the grain of what you think is important and follow that and how you see that. And that's sometimes not easy because a traditional film, yes, beginning, middle, and end, but what do we see? We see the house. And then the car comes in and the main character is introduced, and then soon after the second character, and then we build towards a conflict, and then it gets resolved, and then there is a resolution in the end. That's the thing. But the majority of people thinks that way. So the clearer you can be on what you're making, understanding that that is not going to be always the most popular part, right? That is going to be important, like your point of view and what your aesthetics are going to be. And also knowing what you're up against. So for me, the narrative has helped me in understanding a little bit more of a narrative arc in a film, and then also how I want to film it. And then who really influenced me. For me, it's Maya Deeren, all Maya Deeren. That's the one who had me started. Which also means, the big audience probably never will look at it, because when dance people say, oh, it's pretty narrative, somebody else says it's an experimental film, and what is it about, right? So that's important for you to know. Are you more towards narrative, and then how you're going to establish it, and then how you're going to establish that with the camera? So for me, really, from learning all the A, B's, and C of filmmaking, I'm actually here to tell you, just use your body, figure out what your point of view is, use your camera to look at it, and start really honing that. And your aesthetic, what do you like, right? And even in normal film, when you watch film, make sure to look at the light, make sure to look at its films. Like, does anybody can say like Cora, what is your favorite film, period, and why?
I'm not so good at favorites, but I think Boy, I also really love Maya Deren's film. But Boy, something about the seamlessness with the landscape and the impossible and possible being done in a fairly simple way in that film.
So think about that, and I start figuring out why, right? In Boy, part of what has happened is the angles, and also there are close-ups, so you identify with the boy pretty quickly, and there are separate shots of the landscape. Maya Deeren, and I can do a lecture about Maya Deeren, in fact I do that, but Maya Deeren really develops every scene. So for those of you who've been with me, I really believe in one single shot for one movement that you can still cut up. Why? And one of the things, so where you know where you're going to start your shoot and where you're going to end that one phrase. And if you think about it as phrases, then that's easier to cut. So the edit is never going to be, you don't film and say, oh, whatever, and I'm gonna fix it in the edit, because that never works. Or if you want something that makes no sense, like in the sense of, the old-fashioned videos, and it goes from here, and then they're outside, and then they're there, and then there is no sort of logic to it. So that's really important to think where you want to start, where you end, and what's your next shot gonna be. In the traditional shot, they do shot lists. For me, I don't do those anymore ever, because I do this, right? And so for that to understand is really how you get to the shot that you want. I have here a link that, I can send here if I go back. There are some people do, if you like your camera still. So that's important too. Like, what kind of camera work do you like? Even if you shot a lot, this took me a while to say, I just like when the camera moves, and I like it because it just unsettles me. Some people don't like that unsettled feeling. So I'm not sure where I am. Do you like something in the center of the frame? Like I don't. Like for example, quarantine at Carl Abram, he's always to the side. I like the side. I like to exploring. That's like my particular thing. But that's very good for yourself to think about. Like, how do you start it? How do you want somebody in the frame? Right? Do you want it in the foreground? So if you film, even I'm gonna do that later. If anybody has a glass, for example, with them, do you have a glass in your room or near here? A see-through glass. Yeah, thank you. So I always love just giving yourself an assignment, and I give myself assignments, and then put your glass down and then look at an object through the glass and film it through the glass or part of the glass. What happens if you put it in the middle, right? And then that's really great, but then take your camera and look through it to something. So do you want us to discover something? So if I have this and you want to maybe discover me, right? Then as you hear somebody talking and talking, and then you're going to come closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And the next is this person talking. That's like something in the foreground. Or a fence, or a chair, or a glass. Like, how do you want us to discover the person? What is obstructing it? And that's a great exercise to do for yourself. I love things in the foreground. So that's like one of the things, or just like discovering something. So that's one of the things I really recommend for you to start playing with, is putting things in the foreground. Or people, right? An older film, and it's now on HBO, is like 6 Feet Under. It's an older film, but a lot what the filmmaker does, like say you have the scene and the guy is just like standing here peeing, and you just see kind of almost his crotch, and you don't see him, and there's somebody in the toilet behind him, and the main person talking is the person on the toilet behind. What does that do? What does that do when you see that?
It
What does-
subverts your expectations.
Yeah, but also, yeah, definitely. It changes your expectation, as Julia, that's good. And it also, it makes you work a little harder, and it gives you also the power dynamic, right? Because the guy is in front, sort of almost blocking the camera, and this person here is talking. My hand is the person. You see him here. You see openness fly. You don't show more. It was on HBO, so you saw kind of a lot. But yes.
Gabri, are
Yeah.
you showing something else besides the PowerPoint? Because I have the feeling you're showing something, but I can't see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. I was just, to make the point, I was to say placing something in the foreground. Yeah. And I can send you links of that too. But something in the foreground to make you work harder to look at what's behind. So even what I'm talking about is really how you're gonna compose and frame your shot. What do you like in just one frame without moving? And a way of doing that, in the way, and this is for people that want to work maybe with bigger crews, and that's what Charles Stone, the director, helped me a lot with, is how to visualize for the people you're working with. So I cut out things that I like, I send pictures of what I like, and I make a lookbook with the kind of colors, the kind of framing, the kind of mood. And then when I talk to the camera person, it would be easier to communicate even the framing, the mood, and they can come up with the particular lenses. Or if I do it in post, like if you work with a red camera or other cameras, then you can put filters on it. So the process of rehearsing and playing and planning and thinking is what I talk a lot about, especially if you just have a camera, because you can play so much, right? So I'm still talking mobile camera, even if you go fancy, and you can go really fancy with your camera. And then if you know that, then you can figure out what can I use to make that my vision come through? What is my point of view? What is my aesthetic? And it can be very specific to this little thing you want to do. But the more you get that in control, the more you personally, without anybody, can figure that out, the better your film is gonna, the closer your film that you're gonna shoot is coming to your own vision. And I'm saying all own vision because it's gonna have to be what you envision and to your liking, and that you're clear, and then we all get what you want. So simple camera moves, and that's there. I'm not going to bother you with the real titles, but I'm happy to send I'm not sure who it was again, Priscilla, maybe, that you want more. I have a list of vocabulary that you can have if you're ever in a crew, especially with guys. Sorry for the men in here. They're like, okay, what do you want to do? I went to learn that. I did in a music video I was shooting. I was a director for hire. And I worked with a cameraman that I was just showing him what I wanted. And he was like, blah, 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 blah. So I took a Hollywood camera course, and it just really didn't serve me. But I know the titles now because I would get shots that I didn't want. So, you know, you are your best camera and your best point of view, and the more you can find how to communicate, the better it is. So this is just a little, you know, to get the feeling. The camera movement comes back and front. This is just with me, my body, and the camera, and I did it for this class, so it's a little thing I prepped. And then you know this, but sometimes with a reminder. So just simple person stand still. This is my daughter's, and right. I often end in another thing. So what does that do when you see it coming? I'll show it again. What feeling do you get watching that? If the camera just goes and a person is standing there? There's nothing wrong. It's like I said.
That there's something about to perhaps jump out from another location. That the person's not alone, maybe.
Yeah, because actually you establish an connection. You as the camera is going to be in conversation already with that person, right? So you get more intimately. And you might see it all different, but it's good to try these things, all these little exercises for yourself to figure out, oh, if I do this, that has this feeling. And I'm such a feely person, and I'm so intuitive and physical, that a lot of what I share is like, it goes back to, what do you feel? What do you like? What do you see with your camera? Whether or not you're going to be picking up the camera. That's the part that's going to be the most important for you as a filmmaker, to keep honing. And then sometimes you don't understand how you get to it. How do you do this, right? Oh, the same one. Okay. Then you of course have to orbit when you go around a subject. Again, this is just the camera. I placed her this way because the camera, the light comes from front. When the light comes in front, the face looks different, right? So the orbit is different. Again, what do you feel when something orbits around something that is still? What does it tell you? So this is just camera movements that you really move. It's a moving camera, but it gives you a whole other view, and it changes also what you're saying, right? So anybody like has a specific, like something that you want to say about that moment?
It feels like she's the center of the universe. Everything's revolving around her.
Yeah. And then also, just like in dance, because I think we're all dance people, right? Just like in dance, I think I can mean it. It can, it moves. And just like in dance, when something turns, it can say something. And, you know, in the traditional books, it will tell you what it does. And I also don't like it, so I'm breaking that. I want you to know what it feels for you when you see something like that. Like, that's what I'm really gonna do. Like, a lot of you have made films. And honestly, I did all the right things for the courses and I worked with people, and I needed to understand this with my body, with me looking, with me trying, with me picking it up, so that even if I'm not shooting, I understand the feeling I'm going for, and I understand for the feeling, how can you create that feeling? And you can figure that out when you start really playing with the way the camera can move, right? This is all still on the same eye length, so I'm giving you just a few simple ones. Oh, this is the same. So just even when you see this, now imagine when I would orbit around, this would be a little bit difficult. I probably would have to crawl around, right? But as soon as you're lower and you look up, a person changes. There's some really great articles also on what a close-up does and when to use an extreme close-up. And there are rules, but I'm gonna say don't worry about the rules, and I'm not gonna tell you what it does. What does it do to you, and does that help you communicate the point of view? So if you were the one in the baseball stadium just focusing on the people next to you, how do you want us to see them? Do you want us to discover the two people next to you, or do you want to orbit around them? Do you want to be so close and figure that point out, right? That's also, and that's also something for you to like think about, like how does this feel? So already when this started, it becomes sort of more imposing, or right, so there's different ways. The one that came front, and then you can go back. I'm gonna make you also like experiment with that a little bit. So this, also all moving cameras, right? I just made it end something. And this is just to show that I like to end something somewhere. I could also end in a extreme close-up on her face. But I like to like focus on getting something when you move, so that the beginning and the end of the shot, for me, even whatever I do is clear. I might just use the beginning in my edit, but I like to finish every shot the way I finish a scene. And that's one of the things, you know, I didn't come up with that. But I discovered that because with editing, that editors are grateful beginning and end of a scene, and not just like little random thing. Also for dancing, if there is a clear movement, I want to talk about tempo. So filming also, I did a consistent tempo, right? So that, the cameras all have stabilizers, and you can buy an extra stabilizers. And then again, I'll send you a PowerPoint. I have constantly adding some things to. But when you keep moving, think about your tempo. So as a dancer, what tempo, what angle, where do you place something in your screen? When you talk to the person filming, or if you're filming. But even if you work with a person filming, always and always and always choreograph with your camera. Be sure that you know what you want before you go in. This took me forever. I'm sharing this, like took me years to figure that out, so that gave me a best scene, right? So it's also preventing you to have to come to the same, like make the same, but they're good learning points, like what works. And then you can do things in slow motion, you can speed them up. If you have everything in a steady speed, in sort of the same speed of the camera, it's easier when you have a consistent way of the camera moving in the same tempo when you edit. So when you start to shoot, think about that. So that it's not like quick, but that you can maybe do everything in the same tempo. Because in post-production and in the edit, you can speed it up. You can play with it. But the better the sort of framing, the better your sequences are, the better your sentences are. Which I like to think about everything you shoot from the beginning to the end, like as one sentence or one good word. So yeah, I'm just showing you this one more time just to get, I could have stopped the scene here. Oh, I tried to stop it on her face. I could have stopped it here. I could have go slow to stay at her eye, or I could stop at their mouth, and then the next thing I wanted to film, I would do a pickup on her mouth or face, mouth, and then maybe she says something, Mom, you know. So those are things to really plan with your camera. Like I said, okay, I would like to do it, and then she's gonna say something, or maybe she's crying for help, and we can't hear her, but she does so I'm gonna end on her mouth. That's the kind of planning you can totally do. And she's not even dancing yet, right? Am I going too fast? You're good, fine, things you know. But it's funny, it's all things I know, but then it's like okay, like if I'm like, when I teach a workshop or anything, my goal is really to empower you to just find your things and to find these things that have proven so helpful for me. And I've seen, you know, so funny, I have a student who also was at Screendance Film Festival with his film, and then he's been teaching, and then his student isn't there. So there's this lineage of people that just got being empowered and making work, and it's beautiful, right? And we all keep learning, but part of it is really, don't be afraid. Less gear, less fear. Okay, here we go. Just another idea. This is from a rehearsal from the film you saw, and I rehearsed that quite a bit alone. So even if I have a big set, I go and I rehearse by myself, alone, with my camera, and I go and look at things. Most choreographers and dancers and directors do not do that, and I will tell you, you will feel so much better if there's no surprise when you go to your set, if you know all the things. And then of course you have to go at the time you're gonna film. Here I made 2 films. I made my 3rd film. I had a great location. I had a crew of 6. I had 6 dancers. It was a dance film. It's inside. I saw this place with beautiful light. What did I not think about? The light. The whole day was shot. I didn't have them for another day. I had rehearsed with them extensively in the space on another time. And then I came and we were going to shoot, and we had quite a lot to get through. I did not have 2 days. I had 1 day, and the light came from the wrong direction. So I could not shoot. And so we went put sheets in front of the windows because everything was out. And I just totally hadn't thought about it, nor had my camera person, which she should have. But it was, more in the beginning of me working. And then in post-production, the film still got in a few things, not a lot, and I also never show it, but I constantly had to I did all these kind of interesting thing in post-production just to fix what didn't work in real life. So that's the part, is like, that will never happen to me again. So I go, before I even bring in dancers, before I bring in the camera people or my crew, I am there with my phone filming, looking at the light. And then if I know I'm going to shoot somewhere else, I do it. In the little film I just did, I remember it's just me, no crew, no nothing, no producer. I went on different times of the day, and then I settled on the morning, and then I went on a few mornings. But I still had a cloudy morning, which looked very different. So I shot that day later. And I look at the weather report, look at the clouds, find that out if you're outside. And if you're inside, where does the light come from? So that's when we started, even in the beginning, right? The light comes from here. My light changes really fast, so the light here is different. What does light do from front, or what does it do from the side? And if you're interested, I go through this and I can show you some more lighting things, because especially with the inside, it's helpful. So this is two things are moving. The camera moves and the person is moving. Right, so I'm going to show it again. Tell me what we did. Who moves where? Right. And that's really fun to do when you watch something. So that's the other sort of good things. Keep watching what it is you see, what do you like. Oh, I want this, and it gives a really interesting effect. Now the end of this scene was the sky, which is always great, because what would my next pickup be if I would edit? I want to make sure I have sky, right? Sky and different things, cutaways. I'm sure you think about it, but cutaways are great for filling in some pause and some break, if you want them. Like if you want us to linger, if you want us to feel the sky, like stay with the sky, and then you do some sky and some clouds, and you find your person, or you find another, or you're in another location. Of course, the person that does that really well with both the planning of the shot and the movement and where the movement finishes is Maya Deeren. She plans so much, and that was with film, so you could not even do what we do. Shoot it, do it again, erase it, right? And I've seen her work. It took me so long to figure out what she did. I don't know why. I was so crazy. I'm like, why? It takes me so long to understand. She inspired me, but part of it is training your eyes, right? Anyway. Since we talked about this already, depth of field. So like if you talk about depth of field, what gives depth of field is placing something in the foreground. This is just more of a term where you just talked about, so with your camera. And again, I'm going to ask you from today on, when you sit at your kitchen table, don't just look at your kitchen table. Place something, look at it, be here. Low, look at how it looks. Be under your table, right? Have you filmed your table from underneath? I do, right? So that's really your training in your own house. Your bed, how does your bed look from here? How does it look from upstairs? How does lie down? I film myself lying down here, moving. Like, what does it do? All those exercises are fabulous to do for yourself. Like I did last night. I can't share it very well, but it's like I just closed my blinds by my bed, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. How do I shoot that? And this is the part I just talk of. Visit the site, take pictures if you lose daylight. And the one thing is, even with a mobile phone, and definitely with a mobile phone, so there are two things, right? I'm talking about two things. One is really have your mobile phone to move, to go in and under things that you normally with a bigger camera and gear is harder to go under. And then the other part is keep playing. For me, it's playing. Play to discover. For me personally, for some of you it works. So I'm not going to make, but for me it works best if I maybe see something and that I know visually the camera moves, that I know what it looks like, that I know how it works, and then try to do that. And it's like a dance, right? You make your steps, you rehearse your steps, you have a phrase, and then you rehearse it. So I rehearse my camera. Okay. So this is sort of this part of it. So you're, and this is like, I'm a big improviser. I love improvisation, right? So I'm gonna encourage you, and there are more ways, but I encourage you, and especially during this time, to see what the things are that you can do. What do you like? What do you have? Who you can work with? What can you still learn? Well, I am always learning, so that doesn't change, right? But the two is most important, is improvising, experimenting, and envisioning with your camera. I have my students so much, and then we just did all the camera exercises. For weeks they've made little things, and then they think they're ready for their bigger film. What is the first thing they let go, and why they always crash land? Anybody?
Light.
Definitely light. What's the other thing that they just totally forget?
Play,
What?
playing, experimenting.
Yeah, with the camera. So all of a sudden, they made one successful film because I keep them really tight, a single shot, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna go. And they throw everything out of the door because they know how to film now. And then they start coming up with like storyboards and all these things. I never teach them because I want them to find their own way of registering it, which is what I'm gonna tell. You can read how to make a storyboard online. You can find that. For me personally, it doesn't work. I do a weird combination to communicate. So how are you gonna do? But the part that they don't do anymore, they don't choreograph with the camera and the camera with something else, and therefore they don't know how the light changes. So they be in a room and then their own shadow is in it. And funny enough, I used to be with myself like that, so I recognize it when I do it. I'm completely forgiving. I know they're gonna learn something from it. I also know they're not gonna listen to me. And then, when you think, oh, I didn't do it. And now more than ever, I use the phone to film. So I can almost show on my phone, I download it. If I work with other people, I can show what it is. And I try to choreograph with that person.
Can I ask about that?
Yes.
So you're essentially making like almost the way you would like take notes for an essay. You're like taking visual notes for the film.
Yes.
So if the storyboard were like already a film.
Yeah, I do a combination, because if I could shoot the whole thing, it doesn't matter. But what I do is, if let's say there are a different scene, it's a bigger film, I have a combination of different lighting I like. And often I have like cut out of magazines, or I see something in a film, I stop it, I take a screenshot, I say, that's what I want. Over the years, I found that I have a thing of brownish, greenish. I'm not like harsh light and light. I like the warmer colors, and I like a little old look, apparently. One of my most beautiful series is Boardwalk Empire. so beautifully shot. It's done with film. I go and read about the cinematographer who shoots it though. I go geeky on it. Like, where did they shoot? How did they do it? And I'm like, I don't have the budget. So that's not going to happen for me with a dance film, or yet, or maybe, whatever. But I do find how I can, if that's brown, how can you do that, right? What time of the day would I have to shoot? Can I put a little coloring lens on this camera? You can actually. And I'll share that with you. You can also think about if you bring in light, or you can also have more, think about the clothing. What are they wearing? How do you create that mood? Because even if you're not doing the clothing and you have on a bigger set, when you could say, well, it looks like they're in their, like in the 40s, but it's now, but I like that tone. And then the more visual cues you can give. And then I often have little pieces of film of what I took of how I like a camera movement, instead of saying, okay, I want a wide shot. You know, I used to work with people, and when I hired myself out as a director and I would have to come in, I don't do that anymore. That's why I teach, so I don't have to deal with fitting in a world, in a patriarchal work, to talk in their language. Now I either do most of things myself, but even if I work with others, I'll just say, this is how I work. Are you okay working that way? If they are, and we click, we're working together. Right? So take ownership of that. I know in the film world or in academia, people make you do something a certain way, and I'm here to tell you, don't buy into it. Know it, but know what you're up against, right? So you're up against this, but you're also up against a set of rules that is really made by white males. Sorry to say that, but that's just how it is, like the rest of the world. Now, if you want to be in that, you can totally adapt the lingo. If you want to work in a different way or communicate, how do you want to communicate? And how do you want to work? So for me, it's more about thinking about how I communicate best. I communicate best visually. And then in my last film, because I don't know why I never shoot. I'm always the second camera. I never give myself credit. It's such a female thing to do, ridiculous. Most films have shots from me in there. I never put like second camera Gabri. But anyway, so that's a whole psychology thing. I was like, what? Why? But yeah, but figure that out for yourself. So I'm sharing what I do, but then that's why I keep on going back. What do you like? How do you like your film? And you have this. You shoot it on this. And then also you can be okay. It doesn't have to be a perfect thing. I don't bring out films all the time. I shoot a lot of little things that nobody ever sees. Right? What do you want to share? And they're learning stepping stones. And then I was going bigger and bigger, and now I'm back to just lower production value, meaning the quality, the film camera is lower because I don't have a really high-end film camera. I had that no crew, and I still found it super empowering, and I still got in a bunch of festivals, not only like Screendance Miami. And so that was an interesting lesson for me to still, how do you communicate with the people on set? How do you rehearse, and what can you do? And then for me, it's like a hybrid, like knowing that I'm not making a traditional film. But my main thing is just play, and play always with your camera. And start training your eyes like crazy in your house, under your couch. Look at your computer from behind your couch. Be in the bathroom. Take your phone in the shower. Like look around, like all those things are really important. Like, because even if you go, That's the training. And film it. Like, it looks great with my eyes, doesn't look so good when I film it. Can I do it? Maybe not, right? Okay. And then this is the thing I'm big on is the prepare. You hear me talk about go see the scene, figure it out. So it's the same as the pre-production part of it is so important. What's your point of view? What is it about? What are you making? Are you making an experimental film? Are you trying to do a narrative? Is it abstract? If you're reworking a stage piece for camera, are you making a dance documentary? What kind of dance documentary? Because even in there are little differences, right? And so those are really important things for yourself. If you work by yourself or if you work with the team, if you go to an editor, and this is for Cora, right? If you go to an editor, then if you have your scenes planned out, you can sit clear with the editor and have a clear idea of where you want to go. And it's like with the dance, right? This is the part I addressed on how you will communicate, and that's on you, right? How do you, maybe you do want a storyboard. I collect visuals, which is this part. This is what I do a lot, right? I give pictures, little films, all of that. What do you need? What do you need around? And can you still make a film if you don't have everything? And that was for me, this thing was, I was like, I can't do anything. I was going to tour. I was going to come perform my one woman show. It's a multimedia show. I was going to do this big production. And then I went through like 2 months of thinking, and then I thought, okay, I need to follow my own advice. What do I have? I have myself, I have my body, I have a simple camera. What can I do? Right? And so that's the part that's so important, because with just a camera, you can make a beautiful film. And then you just start, and you start playing, and you can shoot something. And then those steps before, like I said before, are really super important. And then this is practice and choreograph both your dance and choreograph your camera movements. No exceptions always. That's a hard one, and you will find how time consuming it is. But if you think about big films, right? They have a whole crew, and then they have stand-ins that stand there while the camera is figuring out how they're going to shoot it. That's that reason. But now you're by yourself, so you're the one doing that work, right? That's the equivalent. Sometimes really good to know what the equivalent is. So I don't think I have more. And then this one is, you shoot to edit. Do not count on the edit to fix your shoot. It saves you time in your edit, but it also helps you to find flow. And as dancers, we know that the flow is important. You can still cut. Single shots are great to just cut up. You can cut them up, no problem, right? But at least you have something that you could connect if you want to. Oh, and this is me with the stabilizer shooting a dance. And this, the single shot, I really got from Leonard Vertel-Helmrich. I'm writing an article about him with some visuals, and I will share it when I finish. I never have time, but I'm actually working on it because unfortunately he's completely paralyzed. He had a big accident. And so I was looking forward to learning more from him, but I can't. And I also feel like I work with 2-hand stabilizers, and they are there for camera too, which I like because it makes it easier for my body to work with that. But you might not work for you. You might just like a 1-hand stabilizer. And you can play with those, what is there. I did some research in bigger films that are shot with an with a camera, and I'll write those in the chat for you. Okay, I think I should be able. What I'm gonna do is put these in your, you might have seen this is the first thing I did with him. I'm gonna stop my share. See what else I have in there, and see.
I would actually, I'm kind of curious to see some of the examples that you had posted on that last slide.
Yes, I'm trying to put it in the chat right now for you.
Okay.
That's why I went out, because the one thing I learned, because I teach on Zoom, I'm gonna actually do one thing is I'm gonna end the show, going out of it. I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna allow you to do things because we don't have that much time, but I'm gonna put them in the chat so you can see them. Because I have some tips for you to also for where you can get royalty-free music, etc., etc. If you're interested in that, I have those kind of tips for you too in here. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna. You can feel free. So this is what I'm gonna ask you. Feel free to take a screenshot of it. What I am gonna ask you though, and this is as an artist, like I give credit to him. Always credit who you have, because this is, my labor, the ways I see things, and I really believe in this new format to really give due to the people who helped us. So I always name him because he really. I've worked with a lot of people, but that's who influences me, who made me really develop my way of teaching. So that's all I'm asking. It's just like, always doesn't have to be me, but if you work with somebody that influenced you, we as artists gave that forward. It's just as a courtesy thing. And I always do it. And he won't know if I do it, right? Because he really is totally had this horrible accident. But that's one of the things I do. So what I'm going to do is I go back if you want. And I go through, and you can just take a screenshot of it. And I will also put some stuff in there, if that's good. Yeah? I'm making sure I have smashed the patriarchy, yes. So, a lot of what I do, because I work at women's college, is really empower women, and I come by the things we do. So find your way, and as women also, let's absolutely make sure that we give an example by really talk about the people who I'm just gonna go back probably to where we are. Let me make it here. Okay. So you shoot to edit. Do not count to the edit to fix your shoot. That's where we were. This is me filming. So this whole idea of the single shot and thinking about this as phrases that make your choreography comes from Leonard Rittel Helmrich. His website is not updated, so what I'm trying to do on my website, I'm asking his sister for permission, is start sharing a page on him and his work, so I can sort of help his legacy. And he got at Cannes, he was like named best cinematographer just a few years, and then he got this horrible accident, and his documentaries have been in Sundance and nominated for the Academy and stuff like that. He's just fabulous. Okay, these are single shot scenes. I don't have them on my website yet because I never have time to update it. The first one I'm going to be in the chat. We can probably look at it together because that's a choreography made in one single shot. if you can't, if this is hard to take the pictures and find them, I will share all the links. Promise I will not forget, with Miami Light Project. So if you left your name, please do that. So I'll send this to you as well. Okay. I'll just do a little email with these are the links I shared. So you can leave that too. These are all exercises. So I choreographed this one, and there are such beautiful examples of composing. And this I did a little trailer for the dance department with all singles shot, and you can see how beautiful it is when you edit it, even though, you know, horrible lights in the dance studio and all of that. But here is the royalty-free music. Again, I'm going to send it to you, and free sound effects. There's some other ones, so you could try to do that as well. And I'm going to share on the screen. These are some of my films, and I'm going to address this. When you record, always make sure to record your live sounds and save them. Because when you, even if you have music on it, it's weird if you see somebody and you see the wind blowing, but you never hear wind. Or you know that they're stamping and you don't hear it. And then even if you put music on it, in your second layer of your edit, put the sound to make your work live. And then there are sound effects that you can also use. Record it yourself. It's more in tune when you edit, that it really matches the movement. Worst case scenario, put some extra sound on it or make the wind harder. I work with a sound design person always in the last few, because they just come in and they work with the music, with the volume. I don't know if you saw my film at the sound thing, but yeah, so that's just something I strongly believe in. And these are the things that I always say: back up all your footage and other tips in 3 places. In 3 places. And download it, and then make sure you label everything of the day of your shoot and name it. So when you give it to your editor, if you're not editing, then you're like, day 1, I have this footage. Take a separate thing for all your other shoots. And then for those, I like Catherine McPherson's book. I teach very differently, but she has some good tips if you teach for your student to use her book. And she's also quite lovely. This, of course, is, I just want to make sure I go through everything. B-roll. Just make sure you do B-roll. Everybody knows what a B-roll is, right? So okay. So your B-roll is everything that you just shoot, but you might need in your edit. So for me, I did my little film at the beach, and so I have just sky, just the beach, just the waves from close up. And there, I use them for cutaways when I edit, right? But sometimes you're in a location, there is a bottle, there's some random glass, there's this a cup on the table. Then I like to use the cup on the table, which you might need in a cutaway. So it's always, just don't shoot just what you're gonna put in your film, because you never know what you're else gonna, it's not a contradiction in what I said. You shoot as a sentence from beginning to end, everything as little sentences, and then you have all these extra things. This is like the street, the house, little objects. Have them. Editors love it. They're always happy. And I did that, and the editor I worked with was like scolding me that I didn't have enough B-rolls. Yeah, you don't have enough of that. I was like, sorry, I thought, you're right. It just gives a breath. You know, like in dance, you have like the breath. So you want to think of it as a breath or a moment to clean your palate. If you think about it as cooking, I like cooking, so I always talk about cooking, and it's your ingredients. So, like, oh, I'm cleaning my palate. And here is our examples of films that are shot on iPhones. And then if you're shooting, there is the Mobile Dance Festival, which is run out of 92nd Street. And they have some good films. I mean, depends who curates some. You're not going to like everything, right? And that's always the case. I send myself to festivals. You're going to get in some, you're going to not get in the others. It's just like that. But it's good to look at the Mobile Dance Film Festival because you always learn and see what people are doing also. Okay, where am I now? Okay, I clicked on it and that worked, but so I love the B-Script Pro if you want, because I like working with two hands. Right? And again, I got this from the Cinefilm, a workshop I did. And then every single filmmaker was recommended B-Script Pro. So I looked at what films were filmed on mobile phones using B-Script Pro, and there are a lot of the films that I like. So that again is like I can recommend something, it might not be your cup of tea. But the films that I like and were shot on phones were actually using B-Script Pro. So that's the one I recommend. I love Filmic Pro. You get in an Apple store. It makes your camera looks just better. It's not that expensive. It just makes your already good camera better. There's also double take. So either write this down, or you can. But if you have just B-Script Pro, Filmic Pro, and double take, those are great things to have. Yeah, this is what I said. If you're using any sources, give full credit to me or to any films you use, or give credit to any filmmaker that taught your thing if you're teaching something. This is what I'm really big on again. Just for us as a field, right? So anybody needs to still see something of what we just talked about, that they could take a picture of. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this. I sent all the links in there, and then because I talk a lot of more than the things, so I'll just share the links. And yeah, you have my email also, or just go on my website, there's my email. So I'm always open to look at things, or ask questions. If I know how to answer them, I might not, but my main thing is go make films and you have everything you need already. So